of the voiceless Africa. Stories the world be overlooking. Truth seeking, truth seeking. The world be overlooking. Voice of the voiceless Africa. Voice of the voiceless Africa.
Welcome to WOBA, Voice of the Voiceless Africa. Our episode for today is Nnamdi Kanu, What Just Happened and Why It Matters. Okay, so picture this. Nigeria 2025. A big courtroom in Abuja. The judge bangs the gavel. The verdict is in. Life in prison for Nnamdi Kanu. Not a quick trial, not a snap decision. A saga that's been running for years. But who is Nnamdi Kanu and why do people care? Let's rewind a bit. Nnamdi Kanu leads or led Indigenous People of Biafra, IPOB, a group that wants a separate state for the Igbo-dominated southeastern part of Nigeria, a revival of the old Biafra which famously tried to secede in the late 1960s. His voice was amplified through media, especially broadcast. For many, it was a symbol of resistance, of perceived marginalization. For others, it represented dangerous separatism. Over the years, tensions built up, accusations of violence, unrest, sit-at-home orders, disruptions, and a string of deadly incidents attributed to militants linked to IPOB or factions thereof. So whether you see him as a freedom fighter or rabble-rouser depends a lot on where you stand. But you can't ignore the fact that he became one of Nigeria's most controversial figures, a focal point for deep regional grievances. The verdict, what the court decided and how we got here. On November 20, 2025, the Federal High Court in Abuja found Kanu guilty on all 7 charges brought by the government, ranging from terrorism, incitement, membership of a proscribed group, to broadcasting orders allegedly triggered violence. On the most serious count, the judge handed him life imprisonment. For some lesser counts, additional terms, up to 20 years, 5 years were given, but all sentences are set to run concurrently. Apparently, prosecutors had pushed for a death penalty, but the judge opted for life imprisonment, citing among other things, global trends against capital punishment. The court described Kanu as an international terrorist, saying his broadcasts and directives incited deadly attacks and destabilized the region. For Kanu and his supporters, this feels like a blow, but likely not the end of the road. It reportedly has a window to appeal. But why did it end this way? Beyond just the court papers. This verdict didn't come out of nowhere. A few big things pushed events to this point. Point 1. Escalating violence and instability in the southeast. Allegations that followers of IPOB or militants linked to it carried out attacks, enforced sit-at-home orders, intimidated civilians, and clashed with security forces over years. The government says the broadcasts and orders issued under Kanu's influence contributed directly to that environment. Point 2. Long-standing grievances among many Igbos and Southeast Nigerians. Feelings of marginalization, inequality, and exclusions have festered since Biafra's defeat decades ago. Kanu captured some of that resentment and gave it a voice, however controversial it was. The government's calculus is restore state authority and deter separatism. This verdict is in many ways a message that agitation via media or incitement of violence or civil disruption will be treated as terrorism. The state seems determined to clamp down hard. So, the sentencing is just not about one man. It's a flashpoint in the broader struggle over identity, governance, and how Nigeria deals with dissent, separatism, and conflict. But what this could lead to and the likely fallout, or maybe hope, is, let's see, this moment opens several possible paths forward and none are guaranteed to be peaceful. For the government, for example, these verdicts could be used to justify stronger security crackdowns in the southeast. If the government pairs force with addressing root problems such as perceived neglect, inequality, lack of opportunities, maybe there's a chance for stability. And for IPOB supporters like the Southeast community, some will likely view this as injustice or political suppression that could also fuel anger, resistance, possibly underground activism. And others might be disillusioned, wanting to break from violence and hoping for peaceful advocacy or political solutions instead. And for Nigerians more broadly, this could set a precedent that dissent framed as terrorism might discourage other separatists or protest movements, but could also risk stifling legitimate grievances. The government's handling of aftermath matters because heavy-handed repression could further polarize and conciliatory politics or reforms might help heal divisions. My take on all this is, when I look at this story, I see a huge bet. The government is betting that Nnamdi Kanu will stop the noise, silence the agitation. But ideas don't die just because a leader goes to prison. And grievances don't vanish just because a verdict is delivered. If Kanu goes away, will people's economic frustrations, identity concern, sense of exclusion stay, then what? History shows us that when you ignore the reasons people rebel, rebellions don't go away, they go underground. On the other hand, if the government uses this moment to rebuild trust, to engage with real community problems, and to open up political space, then maybe this sentence can be a turning point. But that's the big if. So until next time, thank you for listening to VOBA, Voice of the Voiceless Africa. Till next time, thank you.
Voice of the voiceless Africa. Stories the world be overlooking, truth seeking.